Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order of March 13th. Let's see here. You want to do a readout, Council, of closed session, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council and the public. The council did meet in closed session on one of the two items on their agenda. The other item had to be continued. Council was unavailable. Council did receive an update on the Ripon versus Vandenbosch matter, San Joaquin County Superior Court case, and staff was given direction. No further action was taken.
Thank you. Please rise. Daniel, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and then stay standing for the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm Pastor Ken Boonstra from Emmanuel Christian Reformed Church. Let me lead you in prayer. Dear God, you are good. We evidence that in the replenishment of the earth with this much-needed rain. You faithfully bring seasons of new life bursting in blossoms and fruit. You provide us with loving relationships at home, at work, at school, in this community. You move us to love our city and to create a safe and welcome place here in Ripon. We thank you for the joy that we have in being part of this community. Forgive us for those times that we squander these great gifts we've received from you. We also thank you for the leaders of our city gathered here for this city council meeting. We thank you for the decisions made in this room and the work done by each of these people to make our city function well. Grant each one what they need to do the work to which they've been appointed. Grant them wisdom to govern with understanding and goodwill. Grant them courage to pursue what is just and fair, and the humility to admit when they've been wrong and the resolve to make it right. Grant them the harmony to work together even where there's honest disagreement, understanding their role as stewards of your authority. Bless them in today's agenda and renew us all with the strength of your presence as we join together to make Ripon into a community of respect and joy. We ask this, confident in your goodness and love as shown in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dean Euchre. Here. Daniel DeGraff.
Here.
Steve Parks. Vice Mayor Leo Zuber.
Here.
Mayor Mike Rastusha.
Present. Okay, this is the time for public discussion. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to talk about something that is not on the agenda, please come to the podium, state your name and address. If it's on the agenda you want to address, you can do it at the time. Okay, seeing nobody. Approval of the minutes of February 13th, 2018 council meeting. Oh gosh, not going to pay attention.
Do we have to do that on here?
Yeah.
Oh. Vote in progress.
Somebody's got to move.
Well, where's
We don't have a chance.
You don't have the thing up.
I just put it up.
No.
No, it says vote in progress.
Can you see it?
Nope.
I just put it up on here for you guys to see. You don't
Can
see
you
it.
cancel
Yeah.
it and start it again?
You see it now?
There we go.
Okay.
Someone moved and seconded already.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all votes have been cast. Okay, good. Thank you. Pass. Okay, approval of the agenda as posted or amended.
This is where we pull items, right? I have two items to pull from the consent agenda. 1.1B and 1.2F.
I have 1.4E.
And I have 1.1A and 1.2E. Okay? Set? Okay. So with that, we have approval of the agenda as posted or amended, as amended, I guess, now?
Make a motion to approve it as amended.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Okay. Approval of the consent calendar as amended. Does anybody want to second that? Okay.
Sure, sorry.
Okay, all votes been cast. Okay, now we'll go to 1.1B.
My only question about this is, how should I put this? Is this free money, or is this money that we have to use in a certain way?
It's free money, I guess. This
Goes to the general
money
fund.
It's general fund revenue that goes in the general fund pot.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, should we approve them all at one time?
Or do
Okay,
you want to do them one at a time?
does it help you at one at a time?
Mine has to be done separately.
Okay, so let's do them one at a time. We have a motion to approve this?
I got it.
Second. Okay. Okay, motion approved. 1.1A. The reason I wanted this pulled is, and I know this is new, and maybe we got it last month, I don't remember. What kind of, I saw what we get from the state, but do we have any real true accounting of that, or do we just, here's your population and here's what you get?
For which one?
For 1.1, I'm sorry, SB1 money?
So we get a breakdown of what we receive that explains how they came up, how they calculated that amount.
But we don't know if they received twice that and, okay,
Right.
all right. I guess that's what 69 or 59 or whatever we're supposed to do? Okay. So we don't know. Okay, so, we don't need to approve that, do we, on a motion?
Yes.
Okay. I'll move, we accept. Okay. Now we have 1.2E. I think that's the one I pulled. I know it sounds crazy. I want to pull this because I audit Bank of Stockton, and I just don't want to be on record that I approved any payments to them since they pay me to audit the bank. So I'm going to abstain from that. Do I need to leave the room?
There's no discussion, so.
Okay, okay. Okay, that's been approved. 1.2F. Right? Yes.
Yeah. Two questions. One, these are the operational costs for 16, do they do that on a calendar year or a fiscal year?
Fiscal year, 16, 17.
Okay, so this is the operational cost
Yes.
over and above the replastering costs.
Yeah, the first invoice is. Second invoice, the 8,600, that was the additional cost incurred as part of the pool replastering when they fill it back up and reheat. the
Okay,
water.
That total cost was about 80 grand though, wasn't it, in total?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we're still on a 50-50 basis with the school district?
we are.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion? Second? Yes? Okay, 1.4E, Mr.
Yeah, I need
Grass
to
pulled that.
recuse myself from this one, and I do need to step out, I believe, on this one, so.
Okay. Leave your phone. Okay, he has a stake in that, that's why he has to leave. Okay, it says waiting for Daniel, but, okay, you got it? Daniel?
Thanks for not forgetting me.
Oh, no, no. We need to vote. Okay. Resolution, number 2, resolution supports Prop 69, preventing new transportation funds being diverted for non-transportation purposes. Who's got that one, Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As you know, and we just talked about, the state had passed Senate Bill 1, which increases the taxes to fuel and also licensing fees along with some other increases. And that additional money is intended to go to cities to increase the efforts of completing street and road maintenance projects. What you have before you tonight is a resolution that supports Proposition 69, which would prevent these new transportation funds from being diverted for non-transportation purposes.
I have a question, but does anybody else have questions first? No questions? So the question I have, Kevin, is that, so SB 1 that passed didn't require the money to be used for the reason it got passed. They could have done anything they wanted with the money, and this is to make sure they're legit.
Exactly. In years past, they've had a history during financial difficult times of loaning the money, diverting the money, and using it to help solve their own financial problems. So the intent of Proposition 69 is to prevent that.
Okay. Kind of like what they just did with CalPERS?
Well, but if you look back at, what was it, 1.1A, the one you asked about?
Yeah.
Part of Proposition of SB 1, they went back to, I think it's 3 years worth of time when they did that.
And part of SB 1 is paying that back.
Yes.
And all SB, or Proposition 69 is saying is, we're not even gonna let you start that process with this money.
Okay. Any other questions? A motion to,
I'll make a motion.
okay, second? Okay. Item passes.
Is it on the June ballot or the November ballot?
That's a good
You don't
question.
know.
I thought it was November. But that's a
I can never remember.
I can't remember either.
Well, it's not too late to put on June ballot, but that's a good question. I thought it was November.
And I think you can only do propositions on November. Oh, is it? It's
is?
on June.
Oh.
Okay.
We're both wrong.
Yeah.
There's a first.
Not last.
Okay, ordinance, second reading and adoption, rezone property owned by Ripon Christian Schools located 839 West Main Street. Ken, anything you want to say before it goes to vote? This is the second reading and adoption. Okay, we have a motion.
Adopt the ordinance.
Okay, we have a second. We have a second. All in favor?
I didn't even get a chance to do that.
Somebody else did. I'm
Oh,
not-
yeah. Dean's sitting over here in the bushes just waiting for that.
Okay, well, motion passes unanimously.
Can't stutter, dude.
Okay,
I have
You didn't even say it.
one question, Ken.
You don't have to. That's why we got the.
When can they start on this project? Does this ordinance have to go into effect before they can do it?
Essentially, yeah, before they break ground on the project,
Okay.
this would have to be, so we've now done the second reading and adoption, and another 30 days, and the
days.
property is officially rezoned, and they could actually break ground. I don't know if they've submitted any plans yet to the building department, so that'll take some time to get through
Okay.
anyways.
All right.
Okay. Second reading adoption ordinance amends chapter 12.28, camping, sleeping in motor vehicles and storage of personal property. Who's taking that one on? Is that Kevin? You want to default to Kevin or
Sure.
Tom?
This is just a couple minor changes that staff is recommending as part of the ordinance you see in front of you tonight. This is for second reading and adoption.
Okay. We've already seen it.
So moved. Second.
Okay.
You get them both, Dean?
I don't want to get in trouble again. Covering all bases.
You were still too slow.
Yeah, I think I missed both.
You bet he wasn't that fast when he was mayor.
Okay, yeah, no kidding. Okay, this is the first reading introduction. The ordinance approves the development agreement entered between the City of Ripon and Montpelier Farming Corporation, Engineer Farms LLC for development of 16.53 acres of real property located at Goodwin Drive and Fulton Avenue, just south of Colony Road, as a residential subdivision.
Yes, thank you,
Ken.
Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. This is the Meadow Brook project. This is the one further north, the one that Mark Wilbur was representing. So this is the first reading and introduction of the ordinance in front of you this evening.
Any questions? Comments? Motion?
Second.
We have a second? Okay. Ordinance passes. Next ordinance, first reading introduction, ordinance approves the development agreement entered in between the City of Ripon, Wood, Ripon LLC, Mangalos Brothers, Inc., and California Corporation, et cetera. First reading introduction. Ken, do you want to,
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. First reading and introduction. We are actually awaiting some signatures on this development agreement, so it will not come back to you guys until that happens. So it might not be back next month unless they have all signed it.
okay.
So this is the first reading and introduction, and then it waits until they sign it before it goes any farther?
Correct.
Okay.
Do you think they may not sign it? Or that you're just saying?
Basically, we have the developer and the property owner sign it. There's several property owners involved in this deal, so I'm not sure if they've all had a chance to go through it and sign it. So it'll come back to you guys hopefully next month, unless there's some hiccups in that.
Okay. First reading introduction approved. 4A, Senior Center Parking Lot and Handicap Ramps and Sidewalk 2018. Is that Ken again or is that Ted? Who's that?
James.
James, oh, yeah, all right.
I'll take that. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So the staff report you have in front of you is to award the contract for the senior center parking lot and handicap ramp.
Turn your mic on, please.
You don't get my shoot over here.
So the staff report that you have in front of you is to award the lot, handicap ramp, and sidewalk project, which resurfaces the senior center parking lot, and it installs handicap ramps in and around the school, the high school, on Acacia, Elm, and Locust in that area. We had good interest in the project. We received 5 bids, the lowest being from Taylor Backhoe Services. They came in at $218,000. This is above what we currently have in our community development block grant fund. It's about $15,000 over what we have. So staff's recommendation is to fund that shortfall and any potential change orders with the or through the street and road fund, which currently has a balance of $2 million. Another potential option that we wanted to just pose to council is if you didn't necessarily want to fund that that excess amount, we could look at issuing a deductive change order to get under that $203,000. We'd still award the project, but issue a deductive change order. So this is a discussion item. Just wanted to bring that to your attention, and I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor, and answer any questions if you have any.
What would you take off that would be needed?
It would kind of just be looking at what's there. There's some handicap ramps that we could potentially not install, or sections of sidewalk that we could look at eliminating, just to get under that amount.
Okay.
So this money we're using includes the CDBG money that we talked about a couple of meetings ago. It's current, so we would literally have to wait a year before we had any more CDBG money.
The one that we talked about last is for the 2018. So we're still looking at getting, I think, roughly 75,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ken. In August of 2018.
Keep going.
So that money is still coming. That would still go to the senior center project that enhances
Okay.
the building there. So
Can you pay the $14,000 back once you get that other money?
we couldn't. We could take those items off, potentially include those in a future project.
But it's going to cost more because you're not doing it all at one time, I would suspect.
Potentially, yes.
Any other comments?
I mean, we're talking, what, 7%?
We're not talking much. So, what do we want to do?
I'll move to approve awarding the contract for the full amount.
Okay? Okay. It's motion approved with 4-0. Thanks, James. Okay. 4B, staff will present a mid-year general fund budget update. Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, tonight I just wanted to go over a general fund update for the first 7 months of the fiscal year. So this goes through July through January. Can you get me back to the first page? Or actually just the second page? So this is a slide I've shown the last few years. The green and red lines represents the monthly revenue and expenses that we receive. As you can see, for the first half of the year, it really drives the general fund balance down into the negative. Once we start receiving property tax revenue and motor vehicle revenue in January and February, starts getting us out of that negative. And then really at the end of the year, you start getting more of the property tax back and get out of that negative. So you could kind of see where the expenses have compared to the revenue month by month. The blue lines are the overall general fund balance. Last year, we ended up with about a $1.3 million general fund surplus. You can see by the dark blue line, we are tracking fairly close to that for this fiscal year. I also wanted to point out some of just the general trends we're seeing right now in general fund revenue. This compares the 16-17 to 17-18 for the period of the July through January. Sales tax continues to do very well. We're seeing 12% this year, higher than what we saw last fiscal year. For property tax, it's 6% higher. I have a couple slides here just next that have a little bit more detail about both those. We are seeing increased revenue from interest. So really first time we've seen these kind of jumps since the recession. So it's about a 28% year-to-year increase. The other trend that we're seeing is development-related revenue being reduced. Obviously, when we start seeing the surpluses we've had these last few years, the development-related revenue was a big part of that. So far for this year, compared to last, it's about $113,000, $114,000 less. We expect to continue to see this trend moving forward. Right now in the planning department, you don't have a lot of the developers in that we did have over the last couple of years interested in doing projects. We're starting to see a slowdown. I think even the last couple of planning commission meetings have been canceled because of not having items to discuss on the agenda. So I would expect to see that continue. When we budget, if you recall, we don't assume a lot of money from development. We typically take the amount that we saw during the recession, and that's what we budget going forward. So any of the money that we see from development is used for one-time expenses.
What part of development, assessments, does that 297,000 represent? In other words, it's not building fees. Where's that money come from?
This is the inspection fees that we receive through the engineering department for their plan checks and inspection. It's plan check and inspection fees for the building department, and then also planning fees as the projects come through.
So if our income from all that is down 28%, are expenses down also because we're not doing as much work?
They eventually will be. Obviously, right now, there's still a lot of effort going into it. They pay a lot of it ahead of time, too, so there's a lot of effort happening right now, but eventually those will go down substantially within the engineering department and building department.
Okay.
Is it all done in-house?
Not all of it,
No.
because of the peaks.
So it's not a one-for-one then, really? Okay.
Because of the increases we've been seeing, there has been occasions we've gone out with consultants to get through the peaks.
Does that have anything to do with the changes that we made in this last few months? Too soon for that, right?
Those are building permits. These aren't building permits.
Oh, it's not the same.
No, this isn't.
Ball of wax, okay.
And just the other thing I wanted to point out, we still are receiving revenue from performing this assessor agency for the redevelopment, or the redevelopment successor agency. We'll hear shortly here if that's going to continue or not, but that is currently part of our budget.
Yeah, it seemed like 3 years ago you said we had 3 years left or something like that.
We're getting close, yeah.
Okay.
These are just some of the trends that we're seeing with sales tax. So this is by calendar year, and you just really look at the trend for the major categories. Fuel sales report left,
take a look at restaurant sales tax through economic cycles, you would expect that, and you would expect when things turn, it goes down. I mean, that's typically what we've experienced throughout the state.
Yep. So just kind of an interesting look at,
With fuel being down, why is fuel up so high?
you've seen a recent increase because of the Senate Bill 1, the 12 cent.
Well, I'm looking at this.
Yeah, but that's back in 2008.
Oh, I'm looking at the light.
But that
Okay.
SB1 isn't in there, is it?
It's not.
Okay.
It's not. So, but you've seen an increase in the price of fuel, but we don't see any benefit of that
Right.
with
Right.
our sales tax. Next slide is just the changes in the overall total assessed value for all the properties located within the city of Ripon. So you can, it shows 2007 through 2017, so before the recession, you can see it going down during the recession, and how it's climbed out of the recession. So since the recession, where we're at today in 2017, it's about 36% higher than where we were in 2012, and about 20% higher than where we were prior to the recession back in 2008.
Now, that's interesting, because you look throughout the state, you see a typical similar chart, except for 16, 17, they're way off the scale, like in the Bay Area, but that, you would expect that kind of trend. I really didn't think the trend would be out here that much.
Yeah, so in those first couple of years out of the recession, I think those increases are about 9–10%, and then those last 3 years is about 4 to 5% year-to-year increases.
But it's higher dollars.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
But-
That's good, I like that.
Isn't there something, don't we have an agreement with the county that at the point our population reaches 20,000, the assessed value can go up, but we're probably not gonna see much of a benefit from that because all the money's going to the county?
They're going to take a larger share of the property tax than what they're currently taking for the new annexed areas.
Yeah, and that was it's only for everything past.
That's right.
20,000. Everything before that stays the way it was.
Exactly.
Okay.
What is it now, 80/20 or something?
Yeah, it's less than that.
We get more than that, actually.
We get more than 80?
No, they get
Yeah, right, okay.
65,
So it is like
35 or
80/20.
something.
It's something like that.
65, 35?
Something
Yeah.
like that.
And then it'll go to 80, it goes to 80/20.
Maybe it goes to 80.
It goes to 80/20.
Then it goes to 80/20.
Yeah.
okay.
63-36, I think.
Yeah, it's
I
that's
think
something
that's what
like
it is, and
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, but it goes to 80/20 after 20,000 people. So on the expense side, these are just some of the trends. I think we've talked about a lot of this before, but really we're seeing some substantial increases right now in healthcare and workers' compensation. Everything else is, I mean, they're all pretty much tracking pretty close to the budget, but the largest increases are in healthcare and workers' compensation. The other thing I would point out, you don't see much increase in PERS retirement and non-PERS retirement. What's happening there, it's really individuals leaving the city and gaps in replacing them. So you're seeing a financial benefit of it in those categories at least.
Because typically it would track with wages.
Exactly, yeah. In the wages, you haven't been seeing it because, you know, like with the police department, there are 2 positions that have not been replaced yet, so there's overtime and there's still coverage that's happening for those.
And the healthcare increase is simply increase in premiums costs. Okay.
Just wanted to give a real quick update on CalPERS. We've talked a lot about this, so I'm not going to go into a lot of the details, but we did, because of the lowering of the discount rate, which was starting in July 1, 2018, we set up a reserve fund. Right now we have $474,000 in that fund. We also, council approved prepaying $250,000 of our unfunded liability. We're tracking that with PERS and their models. So today, when we look at it over the next 30 years, that would be about a $446,000 savings to the city because of that unfunded liability. And like we talked about before, it's always a risk with doing this. And I think that was kind of why we wanted to have a measured response and track it very closely. As long as the stock market is doing well and they're making money, it's a good decision to pay your unfunded liability. If they're losing money in the stock market, it's not a good decision because you're just giving more money to lose. One of the changes that you may have heard about, starting in July 1, 2019, CalPERS is changing the amortization period. They're reducing it from 30 to 20 years. This is going to have I think overall, it's a financial benefit to PERS, and it's the right thing to do, but it is going to have a financial impact on the cities. It's equivalent to taking a 30-year mortgage and trying to pay that down in 20 years. You're going to save a lot on the interest, but your payments are going to go up for those 20 years, obviously. For Ripon, we're expecting really the impact to be in the unfunded liability, and they're looking, 1.5% to 2% increases because of this change. So obviously, we're starting the budget process now. We're going to put real numbers to that and bring that back to the city council moving forward.
If they didn't move the amortization period, costs would go up substantially. What they're trying to do is they're trying to amortize the gains over a shorter period of time. It's just an accounting myth, is all it is. Smoke and mirrors, huh?
The whole thing's a myth.
It looks better, you're right.
Yep. So with that, that's all I had. Just wanted to give council a quick update. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions?
No, I'm gonna save mine till afterwards. It's not related to this, it's something else.
Okay.
I was gonna do it, but I'll wait.
Okay, that's no action. Daniel, Dean, anything? Okay. Move on to C, consider sending the state of California a letter requesting an update on the improvement to mental health services that were intended as part of Prop 47. You want me to bring that up? So, one of the concerns that I had under Prop 47, and it gets expanded, that brought it to my attention based on what happened in Florida. And the concern that I have is that Prop 47 was supposed to help with mental health issues and theoretically reduce crime. Well, if you do statistically look, since it went into place, the people that have been released, crimes have increased throughout the entire state. The crime rates from the people that were released, in some cases 60% ended up back in jail, and Terry says it's probably 40% just haven't been caught yet. So I'm really concerned. I'd like to know what the state is doing to protect our citizens and our schools. I think there's danger in just being passive, which I think the state is doing. I would like to know what they're doing to protect all of us. It doesn't seem like we're able to protect ourselves. Our police department, I'd like to be able to send this to the governor, and I'd like to represent update. You had a question?
Well, I don't know if it's a question. I guess when I read things like this, the teacher in me comes out when I look at it. And my concern is I'm not sure when I read the letter that it's clear about what we're asking for. There's more than one thing that's mentioned, but for instance, there's nothing in there about any kind of statistics for Ripon or San Joaquin County. And if it's us, and we're asking about what's being done for us, I think maybe we ought to, if we have any, if we don't, okay. But if we do, I just think they ought to be in there. And are we asking for an update? Because I don't remember that much about this thing, but it was passed by the voters, which automatically gives every politician in the state cover, because we did it, and therefore they don't know anything. I don't agree with that, but that's what I'm anticipating getting. I agree with the concept. I guess what I'm looking at is to get the message a little clearer and the question a little more forceful of what we want, rather than, it seems what this focuses on is the statistics. Cool. I'd like to see the letter focus just as much on what our question is. What is it we want? Try to reduce the wiggle room that they're gonna have when they come back with a response, that's all.
Well, and
We're
I
probably not gonna get one,
I
but at
agree.
least it's out there.
Well, yeah, and you know, wordsmith as much as you want. I mean, I'm an accountant, not a word person, so, you know, sometimes when I write things, it doesn't get real clear as a teacher would write it. I would, you know, encourage if you want to change and make it a little clearer. If this isn't clear, I want it to be clear. I mean, I know what I'm trying to say. I think we all know what we're trying to say, but if it's not that clear, let's clean it up. That's what I would say. I'm not married to the wording in here.
If, Mr. Attorney, would the actual letter have to come back for approval, or can it be approved in concept and then it gets worked out, circulated amongst the council, and Mike signs it and sends it on?
Yeah, I just think if you want to offer some edits post-meeting and it doesn't change the substance of the letter, but just makes it clearer, that's fine. And what we'll do is we can coordinate that at the staff level with Councilmember Zuber offering his insights. And then what we can do is just give everybody a copy of the final letter. It doesn't have to go out for approval
Okay.
of the council members as much as just notifying.
Because
them of a copy.
like I say, I don't have a problem with what's here, but I want Mr. Flora, Ms. Galgiani, and Mr. Brown to know exactly what it is we want back from them, rather than.
And I think we can accomplish that, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would
Might
be-
not ever get it, but at least,
I don't think we will, but I
but at
appreciate
least
any
anybody
edits you
that
have.
reads it will know what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, at least you have the option, or the ability to hold them a little bit accountable too. Say, you guys
Yeah.
are the ones that are proposing these things and putting them in front of the voters. You come up with probably some name that doesn't accurately describe what the proposition is going to do, and then we're here left to deal with the ramifications of a.
Live with it afterwards.
That's right.
Exactly. So, I think it's worth sending it to them and getting, attempting to get their position on what they're actually doing with the laws that they're putting in front of us. So, I think it's a good idea.
Okay,
I'll
so,
move to approve the letter as to concept, and then authorize staff and council to work together to come up with a
okay,
final form and send it off.
very good, thank you. And then whenever Dean's ready to vote, oh, he can't.
What
You
happened?
went down?
Yeah,
Okay, why don't you verbally vote? I mean,
I approve, yes.
so he's yes, so it's unanimous yes.
Cool.
Can you got that okay? Okay, so I'll end the vote, 4-0 vote. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Okay. Chief, welcome back. Glad you're looking good and feeling good.
Thank you, sir. And I have nothing to report.
Okay, save your breath. Ted, anything to report?
Yes, just that last month's water usage, we were at 16.4% reduction compared to 2013, so we're doing a little bit better, heading in the right direction.
Good. Thank you.
Now I have my question. Where are we with that automated sprinkler system that was gonna be, I think we spent 50 grand a couple of years ago. Are we still working towards getting that fully implemented?
Yes, we have several, all the larger parks have had the irrigation systems installed. It's working well. I don't have the statistics with me, but we have reduced like 50% water reduction for our parks with several different things we've done, but has helped out. And we still, we have several controllers that we're still installing. So we're heading that direction. I believe we've got, I think, four more that we're installing, and then we'll take a look at the rest of the system, the rest of the city, and look at possibly coming to the council for additional funding for the rest.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Ken, anything?
Yeah, a couple quick items. Ripon's municipal service review did go in front of LAFCO last week. They actually do it in a two-step process. So they do a workshop, and then at that workshop they ask the commission to set a public hearing date. So Ripon's municipal service review will be in front of LAFCO at the May meeting for adoption, and that would Once that's done, obviously that allows us to annex property into the city if anybody wants to come to us with a project for that. And then on following up on Kevin's budget report, we do have, the Oversight Board has been dissolved now in Ripon, and there's one being set up at the county level. So there is funding that would be potentially available for us to help offset expenses we incur for staff time spent on winding down the redevelopment. We're not quite sure what that's going to look like. So it could be the 125, or it could be something less than that. We'll have to kind of feel the new Oversight Board out and see what they're comfortable in approving for us to cover our expenses on that. I do anticipate giving council an update on the redevelopment wind down process at next month's meeting as well. So that's all I have.
Well, and Kevin sits on that board as well.
Isn't there a possibility that we may get control of some housing money too? That's been sitting out there ever since they killed the thing?
And that is actually a topic that we're going to broach with council at kind of our workshop that we're planning here in the future, and then that'd be a decision that council would have to make. There is money it's sitting in an account that's kind of earmarked. It's actually the housing authority's assets, but they never accepted them, as you well know. So we are kind of trying to figure out if that's something the council wants to maybe try to take back, if we even can do that. So we'll be going through that with council.
Well, is it even really their money? Nobody seems to claim it. It's sitting in La La Land. It's not, is it in their titled name?
Right, that's the question. It really is, if that was a legal term, it'd be a good one, La La Land. We really don't at this point. I would like to appropriate that. You say you're not a writer, but that's a good one. That's one of the things we're going to have to sort out if the council wants to pursue this, and we are in the process of researching that now.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, 119 is bidding next week.
Where's it going?
It's at the sports park. It's the west parking lot, the large kind of square parking lot on the westerly edge of the park. It's just north of that.
The paved part of the parking lot.
Yes. So it's kind of where the carnival was set up.
Okay.
In that
All right.
area, closer, kind of tucked up by the parking lot area though.
Council, nothing? Kevin?
Nothing to report.
Mr. DeGraff?
Yes, we had the economic development meeting with the chamber last week, was it? You were there
Yes,
week,
last
Wednesday? A couple of things we talked about. One was, coming up with a sort of marketing brochure for the city. I think that's probably next step. Ken, something we're working on, right? So it's a good thing. And we talked about just some of the different projects that are going on, including boat country and so it was good updates, good conversation. I think we're heading in the right direction. So that was good. Other than that, as always, thank you to the members of the public here. Appreciate you being here, supporting us. Thanks, Pete, from Congressman Denham's office. Always a pleasure.
Dean?
I just would like to report that if anybody is want to celebrate St. Patrick's Day this Saturday, I am throwing a fundraiser at the VFW, which I've been doing for about the last 10 years, and I have tickets for sale. It's $15, all you can eat, from 12 to 6. So if you really like corned beef, you can really scarf up. That's it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Zuber?
I just have one thing. It has to do with recycling. I've had several people ask questions since this recycling center behind Save Mart closed. I think a lot of people are now bringing their recycling over to the recycling center because it's an ungodly amount coming out of that thing now, since I'm the one that's doing it. But B, I've had several people ask about that, and they've talked to somebody at the store, and they're being told that it's somebody's responsibility to have a recycling operation within 1 mile of the store. And so they're saying, what's that all? I don't know. So could we get some kind of research done to find out?
I thought we were working on that,
Sounds
Kevin.
like Ted may have something.
It is correct. There's part of the law regarding CRVs that the main chain store, which was Save Mart, has to have a recycle center within a certain distance. And it's my understanding they've been notified of that. Talking with the recycler, that they've been notified of it, and they're being resistant. Now, we haven't looked into it that much. We can look into it a little further, but they are required to provide that service.
Well, apparently what I'm being told is that when they talk to people at Save Mart basically says it's somebody else's problem, not theirs. And they're laying it off either on the owner, or they're not assuming any kind of responsibility at all. And I'd just like to know what the options are and whether we have the ability to push any buttons or what. But mainly so I can let people know that we're at least checking into it.
We can contact the state and go straight to the source and find out the issue. It's my understanding it's the new owner of the property, the landlord of the property, that's not allowing the recycler to be back there any longer. And they're from out of state, so I'm not sure they're familiar with all the state regulations. But we can contact the state and get all the details and let you know.
Yeah, because a person I talked to today, they said when they talked to them that they were told that there's some sort of fee involved that you can get out of doing it by paying money. And I said, okay, but who gets the money? You know, because, well, probably, but that's not doing the people who want to recycle any good. So I told them I'd bring it up and we could see what we could do. I do have one observation, because I was in Colorado a couple of weeks ago, and there, they don't have sales tax and they don't have recycling. So when you pay $1.50 for a bottle of soda, you pay $1.50 and that's it. Has California recycling on it, but it's no good to them.
And Nevada has no income tax.
Yeah,
Yeah, no kidding. Is that it?
that's it.
The only thing I want to bring up is on April 7th, which is a Saturday, we have our First Responder Appreciation Day, which will start out at the police department, we'll walk down to the fire department, and we'll have presentations from elected people from the county, state, and federal level. And then all of our, last year we had over 300 people, we're expecting a lot more this year. So please come out and join us to thank our first responders for all that they do. Anything else? Seeing nothing, meeting adjourned.